Alright guys, good morning, and today's the day that we're going to get started putting this stuff together. But I do want to go over certain things before we get started. So I'm going to start filming for all that stuff as we speak. Alright, so most of your stuff is all going to show up on a pallet in boxes packed by that team back there. Depending on what you got will depend on how it will be installed. We still are getting some parts over here for my truck build, but pretty much everything is here, just small things are not. So all your stuff's going to come in a big bundle bag. Your bolts and everything, they'll all be tagged, telling you what goes to what. These will be nicely wrapped. Your load bars will be wrapped, and then same with my truck build. All this stuff will be wrapped. Now, a lot of the racks all have the capability of installing lights, scene pods, which will be using excuse me, which will be using this bracket. And this bracket will go into these slots here. So anywhere you see one of those slots, you will be able to install a light. What you need to do when you get them, as you can see, it's got this little piece in here. And the reason why, here we go, here's one. It'll have part numbers on it. So if you're not sure what part this is, you can go here and look. This one is 1154. Or is that 6? Yeah, 1154. Sorry, I was looking through the camera. Then this one's 1156. But what you could use is basically it's aluminum. So anything that you want, like a file, air saw, basically any type of saw that can cut aluminum, cut all that out. These we're gonna, on ours, we're gonna take these over and get them cut out. So they're ready to go for the install. Next thing, which we already started from prep, so I'm gonna go over this. On the Fords, you're gonna have these little bolts in here, and there'll be a weather stripping. These can come out. But really we're gonna leave these in. There will be a bracket that comes in here, so he can, we'll cut this just a little bit, and there'll be a little turn piece on top to hold the bracket. The same for the rear. The molding itself will be gone for the rack, and you'll repeat steps on both sides. Also, a good thing to do when you're installing is put a piece of tape here to protect your paint so you don't get it all scratched up. All right. Same for those lights. I just realized that these have them, so I want to make sure you'll cut these out. Now only cut them out if you want to put lights there. If you don't, you can still cut them out, or you may not, choose not to. There is a piece that I got that does not have lights, but all the ones in production will come with lights, and it's this piece. This piece will mount to the trusses and allow you to mount like fuel cans, and like lights and stuff, anything you want. What I'm going to be mounting up there is going to be a permanent structure, and I won't be putting lights on it because of that, so that's why mine do not have it. This was all brought to you by this guy.
Hi.
There you go, put you right on the spot.
Right.
Something else that you guys will know when you go to their website, if you notice my product is orange, they do have different powders, and they also have paint matching, so you can match your vehicle. My accents are in orange, as you can see, so I wanted orange. This is your armor, so all my armor is in black. My Groove Tech is in orange, and this is a new piece, prototype. Not 100% sure if he's going into production with it, but I'll get, well, we're gonna have a lot of film time, so I will bring that up to see if he's liking it to put it in production. But he's gonna call this possibly Undertech. You can still mount stuff to this. These are not mounted together, just sitting on top, to give you an idea of what that will look like. But it's time to get started. You guys have a good rest of your day. So I'm going to be quiet for a little bit, and it's just going to be straight up filming, and you guys are going to watch us install.
So you're going to have to assemble the factory mounting hardware points for this. So I'm going to use one that's got the rib nuts in them because the orientation of this is important. You want to make sure that the bung on the rib nut points down towards the roof of the truck. You use this as a gauge. We're going to apply some Loctite to these, but you're going to force that through that hole. And I want you to set the nut right against it and kind of look at how many threads are going to be in contact with the nut during assembly. We don't want to put the Loctite all the way up here. We just want it around this area. So at this point, go ahead and grab the hardware for those, and we're going to apply that Vibratite to every one of these, and we're going to give it time to dry. Vibratite is VC3. This is the thread locker that we use on every product that we deal with, and it's because it goes on dry and it's reusable and it's got a better hold force. Okay, you don't want to over apply it. We knew that we had the foot and then the nut and bolt, so I'm just going to start about a 1/4 inch away from the head, and I'm going to rub this around the threads completely and pull off any excess stuff, and you want to let that dry typically about 10 minutes or so, and it's good to go. I think the instructions say 20, but we don't have humidity in Colorado, so we're just going to do them all. I'm going to start with these just to show you. Make sure that this is the same side that the bolt head goes through. You slip that through, and then we got a flange nut, and you'll feel a little tension when it hits the Vibratite. It's actually doing its job. So push those down by hand. There we go. $13mm and a 5mm Allen wrench, and then just torque those tight. And it should look like that. You've got enough stud here for everything to attach to, and there's some other steps that we're going to take with this when we start to put them on the truck. One of them is we provide a spacer to stand off so that when the foot goes on the truck, it actually contacts this point and sits nice and flat. And the other nuts would go here. There's going to be some washers and stuff, but you see the idea is so that when it's all torqued up, we got good contact across here, and we're not resting the feet on the flange nut. Okay.
All right. When you're removing the drip rail cover here, there's a couple things that you got to do. You can use an aircraft skinning tool, a butter knife, something really thin. Both ends here and back here, plastic welded from underneath. So you're gonna wanna split that. You can put your tool in right here on the end, wiggle them in, and it'll separate it. You can hear it. Once that's done, then you can come to where you got to pry. There's a few different clips throughout, and you basically from underneath. You'll get those clicks, and then you can get underneath it and start to pull it up. On the rear pieces here, this one's riveted underneath the glass. Don't pull it out, don't remove it. The one in the front is pinched under the glass. You can still use it as it is. You don't have to pull these out.
So it?
30 seconds, yeah. All right, when it comes to removing the bolts for the top, you're gonna have these 9/30 seconds here. You're gonna take the front set, the middle set, and the rear set out. These are not gonna be reused, and you can just pull them out. They're fairly easy. They do have a seam sealer underneath that kind of keeps them stuck in there a little bit, as you can see here. These aren't gonna be used again, so just throw them in a bag for later.
Just for everybody that's watching and realizes, this is the bolt that he took out. We put it back in. We just wanted to show you what the original bolts look like, because we already built the rack for prototype. So we already had the other bolts already in here. So you're gonna take this set out, that set out, and that set out.
One of the things that you're gonna notice is if we pull this up right now and put this in, where it lines up over the factory bolts, if we were to tighten it, it would pull it down to the same angle as the drip rail. So we're including some angle correction shims that are made out of stainless steel. And they're designed to go where the factory holes are, with the narrow wedge end pointed towards the inside of the truck. And then when these go in, they'll bolt down and they're going to set completely parallel to the side of the foot in the roof rack. Now during installation, you'll be using some silicone and stuff to seat these, but I was afraid that if we put those in right now, you wouldn't be able to see where that went. But that's the general idea, is that shim corrects the drip rail angle and allows that foot to set completely flat.
All right, so we're gonna do the front foot first. Remember, the front and rear feet have the rib nuts already installed. First thing you want to do is fill the hole with silicone. We use black because it's nice in there. Basically just pump it in until it squeezes out the top. That way you know it's nice and full. Okay, and like I said in the previous, make sure the flat spot is on the top. The bottom is slightly rounded. And the thin side toward the inside of the vehicle. So those are in place. I put the silicone on first, so now this has a layer of silicone underneath it. A 3 mil. Don't tighten them down all the way. We'll still have to do a little bit of positioning here. And basically repeat that process. Remember, the one with no rib nuts goes in the middle. And then the final piece will be adding these in, so it'll sit nice and flat once we start to put the feet in.
Once you have the feet secured, the silicone in, and you've dropped these guys over the top, the next step is going to be to take each foot, and it doesn't matter, it's the same foot for all 6 locations. Slide them over, make sure that the slots are here so we can get some adjustment. And then the fender washer and a flange nut. And just leave those loose enough right now that we can kind of slide them around. And then you're going to repeat the process on all the other locations. Alright, so if you look at the ID numbers on here, this 1056 would indicate this is the passenger side of the Ford F-250. These grooves always face forward. If you look at the front of the rack, if you see these different adjustment points up here, that's also a good visual indicator that that's the front of the roof rack. So just align your holes. On the back side, you're going to put a lock washer and a bolt. These aren't flange, these are just standard bolts. The lock washer will bite down, tighten everything up. It's important to leave everything loose during this stage. We're going to set the other side and then we'll start putting the load bars in, and it's nice to be able to kind of move these around to get them to align. Okay, so we're going to start putting the load bars in, and just the physical size of this truck, we're kind of assembling this roof rack on the vehicle. One thing to point out is that the rear load bar that goes here can go anywhere from here to here. It can also go vertically and mount from here to here, and these small little holes in the center would be pass-through channels for wiring to go through the midsection of the load bar. The back load bar and the very front load bar have those features, and these guys need to attach with the 7/16" hex bolt. And the reason for that is that when these load bars are attached, when the rack is assembled and the armor is up here, you won't be able to physically access these with an Allen wrench. So we do these with the hex bolt so that you can get to them with a regular open-end wrench and make your adjustments on your load bars to make it easier to line up on tent, gears, and stuff like that. It doesn't really matter which location you start with. We're just going to start with the third one back. And these are going to be the 1-inch long, 1/4-20 button head stainless screws, because you'll actually be able to access these with an Allen wrench at any time. You just want enough threads in them to get them started while we do all this, because normally our racks are assembled on the ground and then put on the truck so that it's a big rigid frame and everything falls where it's supposed to. But because of, again, with the size of this truck, we're assembling it on the vehicle, we're going to need to be able to kind of pull this, pull it, twist it, and assemble it and square it up on the truck. Okay, we're gonna show an advanced step here because of the way that we're gonna mount the light bar in this truck. There's gonna be this hardware. It looks like a tapped little steel plate. It's got 1/4 holes in it. Because of the light bar that we're doing on this truck, we wanna take 3 of these and slide them in the front 1-inch tall side of the channel. And then take that tool, then rotate it to where those are facing forward, and then go ahead and install that light bar. We'll be coming back to use those later with the installation of the light bar. Okay. Once you've got all the load bars seated, and on the F-250 there are 7 on the roof rack, you want to take 2 of the load bars, and I'm going to leave these loose because they can be adjusted after the fact, and we're going to do some specific stuff with them. So I'm going to take this load bar here and I'm going to push it all the way back to where it locks in to the very back of that channel and tighten that load bar up. Then I want to do the exact same thing on the next to the front load bar. Once you've done that, now you've managed to take both sets of the groove tech, driver and passenger side, and because you seated these load bars all the way in one of those channels, you've effectively squared that rack. These load bars are all adjustable and you can move them anywhere you want, but it's pretty important before we start cinching all this down that we use the load bars to make sure that the left and right sides are perfectly parallel, so that when we tighten the feet, we don't have the rack on the truck 1/4 inch off center.
Note, the last load bar is loose, so when you put your light on it, you can adjust where it's going to be sitting in the fairing.
Okay, so once you've got all the load bars locked in place and square, next we want to tighten up the feet to the actual groove tech. We want to leave these loose until the very end because that's how we're going to be able to adjust left to right and make sure that the roof rack is perfectly centered on the truck. But for right now, we need to tighten these guys up. You're going to use your 1/2 inch wrench and your 1/2 inch ratchet. One of the last steps that we have to take before we put the armor on the outside of the rack is when you remove the factory gasket, you pried these apart, and now these are going to set and just bounce. And you could silicone them down, you could glue them down, but that's just kind of nasty. So we're going to include some PVC slides like this. That's what the rib nuts become for. So you're going to position that over the top, line up the bolt in the hole, start that down, just center it up, torque it down, and now that is going to hold that in place, not let it rattle, make noise, or come on. Okay, so on the front one, you've got this big long tongue that's left over on the factory piece, and our rib nut is out here. We had to push it out here to make clearance for the foot system to go, so we're going to trim off some of this. We're going to measure this out about 1/8 of an inch from this lip right here and cut this and leave just enough that if you ever wanted to take the rack off and put the factory gasket back on, it would have just enough lip to keep that down pressure and keep it in place. So I'm going to use some tin snips, And I'm just gonna walk along the edge here. It's a really soft plastic. You could probably cut this with just scissors. So if I got that now, I need to go a little bit further. So now I've got enough clearance to put my bolt in. So I'm gonna take my little PVC slide again. Take the bolt. Get that started. Just start to put the tension on that, fully seat that bolt. Now that one's locked in place. We made these little slides out of just a PVC plastic so that if you really have to crank on it and get it to push down, it can kind of bend and bow on its own. You don't have to do anything special, and it's just gonna lock that in, and now those aren't gonna go anywhere. So let's go do the other side. So next we're gonna start to attach the armor to this, and if you look across here, there's a line of holes that have rib nuts pre-installed in them. These inner ones are for the grab handles. This back one and that front one are for the armor. So to kind of hold this up, you can see the same pattern here. So you're gonna take your bolt, put it through the hole. There's a black spacer, put that behind it, and then go up and just hand thread those in. And that's it. And we'll come back in the final steps and we'll tighten everything up. But that's the fit and finish. You've got a gap underneath here. The contour hug on the roof is spot on. And once you get your handles in here, it'll pull this bracing out, everything locks up, and you're secure. So the fairings for these work to split the wind, and there are a lot of different options that you can get for lighting. This particular truck's running the new XL Link from Baja Designs. If you look at the end, you're gonna see holes on this side of the flange, same thing on the other end of it. They're gonna align to the two upper holes on the front of the armor. So with a buddy, because this is a big stretch here, you're gonna take this, slide it across, grab your hardware. I like to start in the top, align those bolt holes. And then you're going to attach two flange nuts to the back of each one, and you can just reach right up inside of there and do it. Where are you standing? You're shorter than me, but you're taller than me right now. What are you standing?
I'm standing on the inner door ledge.
I probably should have done that. We're used to the helmets, man. You can just reach it.
Why don't you go full size?
Right? So once you've got these started, you can take a 5mm Allen wrench, 13mm open end wrench, reach up in here, crank these down. Once these two are tight, then you can tighten the bolt that you use to put the armor on. That's it.
All right, guys. So that basically sums up the video from upTOP Overland of the rack install, and I guess I forgot to do kind of a walk around video There was a lot going around in the shop after we got done. So basically, after you install the front fairing, that is pretty much the end of it. Everything else on there is, you know, just mounting your light on the inside the rack and so on and so forth. But we basically just wanted to do a quick video on how to get the rack onto the truck. So that's what this video is about. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't yet to subscribe to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.